Alright, here we go. Round 3 of the Q&As. Question 1. Do you think you will ever review Mario Paint? Well, I haven't really thought about it all that much. It didn't really cross my mind that often. There are quite a few games that do, but this one wasn't all that much. I guess I pondered it now and again, but, it's an interesting idea. I definitely could see myself reviewing it in the future at some point. Why Atari games? Did you grow up during the era? Did you discover them later? Well, first off, my first video game experience ever was on my 4th birthday when I got an Atari 2600 for my birthday with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. It was the first video game I ever played. It was my 4th birthday in April of '87. So Atari has a soft place in my heart for being basically my introduction to video games. And because I had so many games handed down to me through my cousin and some other people that I knew, I ended up with not a huge collection, but a pretty big collection that led, I guess, to let me become familiar with a great deal of Atari games. So it's easy for me to review games that I have a great deal of experience with. So that's one of the reasons why there's so many Atari reviews, and because they're so quick and short, easy to make, that they are basically bonus reviews in between all the walkthroughs. Is there an underrated game or game series that you are a fan of? Well, underrated is a matter of opinion. So in my opinion, the most underrated game series that comes to mind, the Fire Pro Wrestling series, which was a Japanese exclusive game for a number of years throughout the series. And to make a long story short, it's so in-depth that it's ridiculous. And I find the United States wrestling games to be ridiculously overrated. What are your top 10 video games? Well, top 10 and top 5 and top anything questions really are very pinpoint and exact, because you're, constructing a ranking system of these categories. So I'm not going to answer top 10 or top 5 questions on these Q&As, but if you want to, ask them, go right ahead, because if I ever do answer them, it will be in a top 10 video that I'll end up making. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to start a series on that, but if I ever do, it will be based off of requests. So feel free to ask them, but don't expect them to show up on these Q&As. How is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video coming along? Did you get a lot of people to send clips yet? It's slowly but surely. Most of it's my fault, because I've just been spreading out my projects. And it actually works out good anyway, because I'm leaving the door open for other people to join in on it. So it's like, a work in progress, something that comes out down the road. So expect it, but don't expect it to be right away. Every review walkthrough that I've watched, I gotta know, were they randomly selected or were they suggested by your fans? It's a combination of the two. I usually go by what game I want to do, just off of what I feel like reviewing, what would be a good game to review right now, based off timing. It's just sometimes you don't feel like going into a certain game, so I just go by what I want to do, and then if I'm stumped or if I just feel like it, I will go into the requests file that I have and just glance over them, and if something strikes me, catches my eye, I will say, oh, I'll go with that one. I get so many requests now, it's virtually impossible for me to fulfill all of them. During the first year, I was able to do specific requests, but now it's they're piling up so much that it's impossible for me to catch up. But I do keep track of them, and I do take them all into consideration. Are you planning to use widescreen? Well, I'm not planning not to, but I don't really have any long-term plans or short-term plans to use widescreen specifically. Could you review Battletoads for the NES? Sure, why not? When the hell are we going to collab again? LOL. It's kind of funny because we just talked about this recently. When, though? I want to say November, December is my projection. 'Tis the season. Are you interested in reviewing one of the most annoying games I have on my list? Time Lord, Deadly Towers, Solstice, and Baby Boomer. I've definitely thought about Time Lord and Deadly Towers. Time Lord especially because my best friend loves that game and finds it to be underrated. So I have a personal interest in reviewing that one. Deadly Towers, same idea, different story. The other two, I hadn't played much, but I don't see why not. Nothing definite, though, on any of them. How did you get into Jethro Tull? Doesn't normally seem like the music for a person of your age. Well, no, it's not the target audience, my age group anyway, but, I've seen Tull live twice, and you'd be surprised how many young people go to these shows. As far as the masses go, young people don't like music that is that old, but when it comes to people that will pay tickets for the shows, there are a good number of people that go back and appreciate music before their time. How I got into them? Well, my stepfather was a pretty big Tull fan, although I've surpassed him in Tull appreciation over the years, but he would listen to them quite a bit, and around my senior year of high school, I would say, is when I really just started getting more interested in them, and that was around when my mind to music was opening up to various genres, so something about them just grabbed me, and they've since been in probably about my top 5 bands. A lot of the games you review, I can imagine you have in your own game collection, but are there some games you do walkthroughs for totally blind? If so, how many times do you play through the game before you give it your honest assessment? Interesting question. Well, I don't do any games blind, because that would make it much more difficult of a process than it already is. Most of the games I've reviewed are in my collection, but there are some that aren't, and the ones that aren't, I have to play through at least once. It usually is 2 or 3 times in order to give it a proper walkthrough. And because it's only a few times that I play it, I don't really always get the best strategies. So I often learn things from other people after I post my video. I never consider my walkthrough strategies to be the way to go. This is just my personal suggestions based on how I played the game. And it's interesting to hear feedback from people when they will correct me or throw in their own methods of beating certain areas of the game. What or who inspired you to start a rock band? I've always wanted to get into music. Music's always been a big part of my life. It's probably, in fact, it is my main passion ahead of video games. Ever since I was, I want to say, 11 or 12, music's been right up there. And I've always been a creative person, I guess. I always like to be artistic with things, and music is the most fun and rewarding experience with expressing myself artistically. Can you post a real-life video about your band? Well, I'm going to, at some point, create a channel specifically for my band, or bands, really. I have multiple projects, solo and dual projects with different genres branched off of the members of the band. Long story short, there's like 3 or 4 or 5 projects, side projects, and I'm going to probably at some point create a channel that will, document all of them. Which newer games do you play online or offline? The games I play the most online are Metal Gear Online and Mega Man 9's online challenges. Do you like cars? If so, what would be a favorite muscle car originating from the 1970s era? Well, I'm not a huge car buff. I like them and everything, but I'm not very knowledgeable in them, and I'm not good at fixing them either. If my car breaks down and the tank doesn't say E, I'm fucked. Quoting Mitch Hedberg. What type of music does your band play? Well, like I said before, I have multiple projects throughout the band. The main band kind of does a hypnotic, experimental, droney, trippy, impossible to define genre that we're really in the middle of defining as we go. We don't like to, I know it sounds kind of pretentious, but we don't really like to label ourselves. It's something that you kind of have to hear and then throw your own assessment onto it. Not to say that it's completely original, that nobody's ever done anything like this before, but it is kind of hard to honestly put a specific label on it. You have an accent. What is that accent? Sounds to be from the northeast part of the USA. And you are correct. It is northeast USA. I'm in southeastern Massachusetts along the eastern border of Rhode Island. So it's actually kind of more of a Rhode Island accent than a Boston accent. Boston kind of has that, it has a much more thick accent than I do. I guess it's more of a hybrid than anything else.